As the old goes, it is better to light just one little candle than to stumble in the dark. If we'd all say a prayer that the world would be free, a wonderful dawn of a new day we'd see. And if everyone lit just one little candle, what a bright world this would be. At KI, we light not one, but two candles, one to remember the Sabbath and one to observe it. And we usher in Shabbat when the blessing is chanted. Some of you may remember that back in the day, the third candle, which we used to light the other two, was quickly extinguished with a snuffer or a doubter. Somewhere around 10 years ago, that practice was discontinued. As was explained to me, if one candle goes out in the middle of Shabbat, that third candle ensures that we always have two lit. Now I'll ask Lisa Nikos and Marge Weiss to the Bema for the honor of ushering in the dawn of a new day and leading us in kindling the lights, the Kiddush, and the Motzi. We're on page 2.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat take it over here. Shabbat enters with words of wonder poured upon rich wine to fulfill the verse, remember the Sabbath day to sanctify it. Kiddush is a ritual of words and drink, a magical bridge from the harried weekdays of the weekday of the day of rest. As I lift this cup of blessing, may I celebrate the promise to come and promises to keep. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim. Where's the thing for that?
Just a blessing.
Yeah.
We can all say the blessing together. Baruch
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, harosi v'chevin ha'aretz. I don't know why I'm handing that to him.
Let's read together on the bottom of page 9. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness, which inspired sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing to God. As you know, the opening words of Legato D means, "Come, my beloved." While singing the last stanza, we typically turn to the back of the room and greet the Shabbat Queen. Some you will see will bow when the words Boi Kala, enter, O bride, is sung. The beloved poem was written by a 16th century Kabbalist, and the footnote mentions he immortalized his own name in the first Hebrew letters of the individual stanzas, Shlomo Halevi. So please turn to page 20, and we'll sing verses 1, 5, and as usual, if you are able, rise for verse 9. We will remain standing for Am I Awake on the handout and the Baruch Hu on page 28. Shabbat nekabela lekadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
Shamor v'zakor b'dibor echad, Yishmianu el hayuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'liteilah. Lekadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lekadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat nekuru v'necha, ki mikor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, nof maaseh b'machshava tefila.
Lekadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lekadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
Oiv shalom
Ateret kola,
Abesikahu v'tzola, Tokimne amsegula,
Boi kala,
Boi kala.
lekadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lekadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Page 28. Lie, la la lie, lie, lie. La la lie, lie, lie. Ya 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 la lie, lie, lie. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to our prayer? Can you hear my voice? Do you understand? Am I awake? Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. Le'olam vaed. Le'olam vaed. La 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 ya 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 la 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 la. Please be seated. There is no prayer more iconic within Jewish life as the Shema. Its majesty lies in its sheer simplicity as the credo of the Jewish people. There is only one true God. The words of the Shema are not simply an obsolete call for blind obedience. Rather, as you will see with the accompanying V'ahavta, they are an accurate reflection of the fact that good and moral behavior must sometimes be motivated by the possibility of negative circumstances and consequences. We want the prayers that we recite to reflect our thoughts and experiences, and the Shema links the words to emotions that all of us can relate to. We're always searching for reminders of God's presence around us, and the Shema tells us just that. Please rise. The Shema is on page 34. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malkuto Leolam Boed. Be seated. The prayer that we call the V'ahavta is the continuation of the Shema. Traditionally, the Shema consisted of 3 biblical passages from the Torah. The first, from Deuteronomy, states the obligation to love God and to live with the words of the Shema in everything you do. The second passage is not included in the prayer book of the Reform movement. It describes God's reward for obeying the commandments and the punishments for disobeying. The third passage from the book of Numbers begins with the commandment to wear tzitzit, the fringes on the corner of the talit, and ends with Laman Tiskaru, the section that states the obligation to remember and do all of God's commandments. These 3 paragraphs, love God with all your heart, obey his commandments or perish, see the tzitzit and remember God's commandments, seem at first glance to be 3 unrelated texts, but really they work together to represent humankind's moral development. Each paragraph of the Shema leads us to the next step in our spiritual journey, ultimately encouraging us all to live lives of mitzvot, because God is, in the Shema's final words, Adonai Elohehem Emet, the God of truth. Please read with me in English on page 36. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them on your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohim Emet. Who is like you, O God, majesty and holiness, awesome in splendor, worker of wonders. The Song of the Sea is a poem that appears in the book of Exodus. It is noted for its archaic language and written in a style of Hebrew much older than the rest of Exodus. A number of scholars consider it the oldest surviving text describing the Exodus, dating to the pre-monarchic period. Sung by the Israelites after their crossing the Red Sea in safety, the song celebrates the destruction of the Egyptian army during the crossing and looks forward to the future conquest. So let us sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations yet to come. The Mikamoka is on page 40. Mikamo kaba alimadonai, mikamo kane gabakodesh, norata hilok o sefele, norata hilok sefele. Makuta kara uvaneka, kaya yamit misha yamiria, Adonai Imlo Leolam Vaed, Adonai Imlo Leolam Vaed. Mikamo Kabali Madonai, Mikamo Kane Jabakodesh, Norata Hilot Osefele, Norata Hilot Osefele. Lai 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 la lai la 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 lai, lai 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 la 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 lai, lai la lai 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 la la lai, lai la lai lai la 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 lai. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Prior to going to sleep, many Jews recite prayers which are believed to bring peace and comfort while they are asleep. Scholars used to teach that during the night, demons came searching for innocent souls. However, completing these prayers would protect them from such dangers. The bedtime prayers are structured around the Shema, which many Jews believe will protect them from for the afterlife if they unexpectedly die while sleeping. Read with me in English on the bottom of page 43. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Haporei Sukkot Shalom, Aleinu ve'akol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Each week, we sing either Vishamru, telling us to observe the Sabbath, or Yismaku, reminding us that Shabbat is not a burden, but rather a source of joy and delight. And because of that, we sing the song with as much passion as we can muster. So let us delight. Is more difficult, which is why the Amidah, the standard individual prayer, begins with the words, "Open up my lips." Yitahilateka. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Oteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah,
Elohei Rivka, Elohei Raquel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanoraha, El Elyon, Gomel Kasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezoker Kasdei Avot V'Yamahot, Ubi Vigula Livdimei, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Oser Umashia Umagain, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Vetzrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mikael Talav Hoshia, Mori Atah, Mikael Koyim Bekesed, Mikael Hakol Berakamim Rabim, so make no flim verofet kolim, Umati Rasurim, Umakayem Emunato, Lishem Afar, Mikamoka Baal Givarot, Umido Melach, Melech Memi to Makaye, Umatzliach Yeshua, V'neheman atah lahayotako, Baruch atah Adonai, Mikaye ha'akol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, Ukadoshim b'kol yom yahalu kasela. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. The Ritzeh on page 56 asks God to find favor with us and accept our prayers. So now we ask, most gracious God, on this day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults and grant us the wisdom of forgiving others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest self and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to be discouraged, hope enough to overcome our fears, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us, and may our offerings be acceptable to you. Each week we say a prayer for peace. But first I want to tell you a story. Once there was a king who offered to give a prize to an artist who could best paint a depiction of peace. Many artists decided to participate and sent their king their masterpieces. Among the various works, one was of a calm lake closely resembling peacefully towering snow-capped mountains where a blue sky with fluffy clouds was overhead. The picture was exemplary. Most of those who viewed the painting of peace from different artists thought that this painting was the best among all the others. But the king had another winner in mind. To the crowd's surprise, the picture that won was of a mountain, too, but was more plain and rugged than the other piece. The sky was shady and looked angry because there was lightning. It was exactly the opposite of what peace should look like. The others thought that maybe the artist submitted a wrong painting showing a storm rather than peace. What others didn't notice was that if you looked closely at the painting, there was a tiny bush growing in the cracks of a rock. And in the bush, there was a mother bird sitting peacefully in her nest in the midst of the stormy weather. In that specific portrait, it was depicted that in the presence of all the turmoil, there is still someone who, or something that, can be calm in their own space. Shalom Rav is our song for peace, and it's on page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamverach et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Maimonides said, there is health and illness to the soul, just as there is health and illness to the body. And when there is illness, there's a prayer for that, generally recited when the congregation's spirit is most intent. The community says the Mishaberach. While it could refer to a whole set of prayers for people's welfare, it's usually imagined that it's said for people who are physically sick. But our tradition shows how long we have known about and have spoken about this mental illness. Anxiety is mentioned in Samuel 1, depression in the Talmud, and even obsessive-compulsive disorder or something related to it is in the Mishnah. Though our rabbis didn't know that mental illnesses were diseases of the brain, they thought that it was something close to it. Within the Mishaberach is a beautiful formulation, and send them refuah shlema, complete healing, refuah hanefesh, healing of the body, and refuat haguf, healing of the soul. What's lovely is that bodily health and mental and spiritual health are inextricable here. Without both, it is not considered that the healing is complete. Tonight, our prayers go out for Robert Alexander, Mac Beeson, Robbie Cohn, Ellery Einstein, Dave Eiskowitz, Marianne Gardosky, Jamie Gordon Rodriguez, Bobby Hamill, Emily Hochstedler, Wilburn Nichols, Felice Price, Shioli Rosenberg, Rivka Elka Batrut, Norm Sarachek, Susan Scarce, Bert Schlossberg, Peggy Stetner, and Marcy Zolkos. Anyone wish to include a name on the list? Thank you. Thank you. The Misha Barak is on page 253.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
Mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. And let us say, Amen. Once upon a time, an emergency required an aircraft to divert to Sacramento. The captain explained to all the passengers the situation, and he invited them to get off the plane, as they would have about an hour delay. Everyone got off except one lady who was blind. The pilot had noticed her because her guide dog rested quietly under the seat in front of her. The pilot approached her and asked, "Ma'am, we're in Sacramento for about an hour. Would you like to get off and stretch your legs?" The blind lady looked kindly at the captain and replied, "No, thank you, sir, but perhaps Fido would like to stretch his paws." Now, I'm sure you can imagine all the people in the boarding area looking aghast as they suddenly saw the pilot getting off the plane with a guard dog. Even worse, the pilot wore sunglasses. We all make rash judgments many times during the day. But as Yossi Goldman wrote, don't be judgmental unless, of course, you happen to be a judge. Then it's your job. This week's parashah is from Deuteronomy and begins with the biblical command for judges to be appointed in every city and town to adjudicate and maintain a just, ordered civil society. Interestingly, it occurs in the first week of Elul, the month in which we are to prepare in earnest for the days of judgment, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. At its deepest core, I think America prides itself on the rules of law, the insistence that no one is above the procedures that govern human conduct. Now, the cynic in me knows that this is not true in all cases. While we may no longer subscribe to the frontier ethics of the West, over the years we have witnessed how the perpetrators of hate crimes, crimes against persons, or white-collar crimes escape punishment as these individuals expect immunity from various laws because of their high political office or professional status. Nevertheless, the Torah argues for the rules of law, both through its overall structure and also explicitly in tonight's portion, Shoftim. In the Torah's view, establishing courts of law to magistrate breaches is an indispensable requirement for religious societies. Yossi Goldman went on to explain that there are some significant differences
between earthly judges of flesh and blood and the heavenly judge. In the earthly court, if after a fair trial, a defendant is found guilty, then there's really not much room for clemency on the part of the judge. The law is the law and must take its course. The accused may shed a river of tears, but no human judge can be certain if his remorse is genuine. His feelings of regret are touching, but of limited legal consequences. After all, a human judge may only make a decision based on what the eye can see. The misdeed was seen to have been committed. The remorse, who knows? Perhaps he's a good actor and only playing the part. The Supreme Judge, however, does know whether the accused genuinely regrets his action or is merely putting on a show. He knows the whole person and can judge them in context of their entire life, and thus he alone is able to forgive. That is why in heavenly judgments, teshuvah, repentance, is effective. Unless you are waltzing through the stacks of your community library or even the KI library, you know not to judge a book by its cover. We all have flaws. Hopefully the good ones outweigh the bad. And as we heard in Eric's parashah last week, it only took one sweater to serve as a weighty counterbalance and shift in the favor of good. Our goal is to emulate the heavenly court. As Elvis once sang, walk a mile in my shoes before you judge, criticize, and abuse. So instead of rushing to judgment, we should spend time trying to at least consider and understand a person's perspective, their motivation and experience before finding fault with them. A teacher once conducted an experiment. He held up a blue plate and showed it to the class. In the center of the plate was a small black dot. He then asked the class to describe what they saw. One student said he saw a black spot. Another said it must be a target for shooting practice. A third suggested that the plate was dirty or damaged, whereupon the teacher asked, "Doesn't anyone just see a blue plate?" Ours is a religion of law. Take away the force of law, and Judaism becomes merely a series of helpful suggestions. Just as one cannot claim to embrace American values without adhering to American laws, so too one cannot distinguish Jewish values from Jewish law. As we approach the high holidays, let us receive with open mind and heart what is offered to us. Let us learn to embrace as easily as we evaluate. Let us quiet the ever-present instinct to judge and criticize others. Let us learn to accept help from those who care for us. Let us grow less insistent that life bend to our will and expectations. And let us pray that as we go forward, generosity of spirit will tip the scales in our favor and be acceptable to our God. Kini hi ratzon. I'd like to call to the bima my friend and board member, Linda Pollock, for the weekly announcements.
Good evening and Shabbat Shalom. My name is Linda Pollock, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we'd like to welcome you to our Shabbat service. Thank you, Martina, for bringing in Shabbat. I know I am in awe of the knowledge and spirituality you bring whenever you lead Shabbat services. It's just something I could never do. So, and also how you are the keeper of all things KI. From the little tidbits of information at the beginning about the history of our building And if you want a policy or procedure from 30 years ago, this is the woman to see. She knows it all, so
Pretty sad.
thank you. And please note that with Family Promise in the building tonight and tomorrow morning, our Oneg and Torah study will meet in the social hall and not in the multipurpose room. And before I move on, I just want to take a quick minute that Martina talked tonight a little bit about around the Via Hafta, how it's important that we lead lives of mitzvot. And I just want to give a shout out to Rachel Cabellis and Nancy Silver for everything that they have put into to help make Family Promise the success that it always is. If you spend any time or spend an overnight here during the week, you realize how many wheels are turning at the same time and how many details have to be attended to and how we are taking care of for families this week with very young children, and all the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed, and it's just flowed beautifully. So I know Rachel is here, and I don't know if Nancy's somewhere in the building, but thank you. Thank you very much for all of us. There's a lot happening here at KI over the next few months. Detailed information can be found on our website, www.kilv.org. Our Welcome Back Barbecue will be Sunday, August 27th. Please register by Tuesday. It promises to be a fun event, fabulous food by Chef Eric. We're going to do a 50-50 raffle, have activities for the children, so it's going to be very family-friendly and fun, so please come. Saturday, September 9th is a day at the lake at Lake Nakamixon, Torah study, Shabbat yoga, and so much more. You can find our High Holy Day schedule as well as Sukkot and Simchat Torah events on our homepage. On Sunday, September 10th, we begin our new year of religious school with a special open house featuring author Dana Krameroff. School registration for the year is available on our website. Registration's also underway for the annual Harvest 5K on Sunday, October 15th. Adult Hebrew classes, Taste of Judaism, on 3 Tuesdays in October, and Lifelong Learning will hold a panel discussion on October 22nd titled Being Mortal, What Matters in the End. And of course, preparations are underway for Rabbi Tornberg's installation weekend, November 17th and 18th, so stay tuned for details. Again, thank you, Martina, Carol, Rebecca, our wonderful choir, Kelly. I always like to give a shout out for being our Oneg Maven, and thank you to both our in-person and at-home congregants joining in tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, darling. A lot going on at KI. I hope you can join us for a lot of those events. I would now like to call Charlie Hochstedler and my other half, Mike Obensky, up to open the Ark. Please rise for the Eleno on page 282.
Shalom.
Please be seated. Grief is a part of life, and we will all know what it is to mourn at some point in our lives. And it's at such times that many of us turn to the words of the greatest poets who have found a way to express the grief that we feel, putting words together in such a way as to give voice to our feelings of mourning and loss. One such poet, Maya Angelou, wrote, "When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, and sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened, examine, gnaws on kind words unsaid, and promised walks never taken. When great souls die and our reality bound to them takes leave of us, our souls, dependent upon their nature, now shrink, wizened. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms slowly, spaces filled with a kind of soothing, electric vibration. Excuse me. Our senses are restored, never to be the same. Whispered to us, they existed. We can be, and we can be better, because they were here and they existed with us. Tonight we acknowledge those in the first year of mourning. And the Shaloshim of Raymond Zarrow, father of Susan Zarrow. Rebecca Binder, wife of Charles Cohen, mother of Benjamin and Leah Cohen. If you hear the name of your loved one and wish to stand, please feel free to do so. Yortsides for this week include Sylvia Barr, Sydney Bergsman, Diana Berman, Bess Bernfeld, Charles Blaker, Leo Flax, Jules Fogelman, Margaret Friedman, Elsie Gaston, Sally Gilbert, Bertha Goodstein, Charles Holmes, Morton Parmet, Gloria Perkin, Helen Popkin, Todd Sarnoff, Walter Soloka, Marjorie Silverberg, Peter Sussman, Abraham Tepper, and Rabbi Louis Youngerman. Now, in solidarity to all who mourn, please rise for the Kaddish on page 294. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Me Rabal, Yalmad Dirte, Yalik Malkute, Kaye de Kon, Vikmea Kon, the Kaye de Kol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala of Zman Kariv V'Yamru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabba Mafrek, Le'alam Le Almaya, Yit Barak V'Yishtabach Vit Parar Vit Raman Vit Naseh, V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Talal, Shemei de Kudashah Brihu, Le Kol Berkers, Tushbekata V'Nekamata, Dat Miram Be'alma V'Yamru Amen. Yehe Shalara Rabamin Shamaya,
v'kayim aleinu ve'kol Yisrael, v'yemru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'kol Yisrael, v'yemru amen. Blessed be God's great name through all eternity. Please be seated. Our closing song is on the insert, and while we don't have David and the bongo drums, we do have Carol and Rebecca. Amen, Shem Nora.
Amen, amen, amen,
Shemora. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, amen, Shemora. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, 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 Shemora. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, 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 Shemora. Amen, amen, amen. Shabbat shalom.